Alright ladies, I know, I've been away for a while. I've got a new specialty at work, ortho, and working on my website, all these things mean we've had a bit of a delay in the content stream. But you don't care about that. You're here because you want to see a fantastic budget build in the GameMax Diamond Case. Fine, let's go. It's a bit of an older build from my archives using a Deepcool PK650D power supply, Gigabyte B550M DS3H Wi-Fi board, RTX 3060, 500 gig Lexar NVMe drive, 32 gigs of Corsair RAM, and a Ryzen 5 5600X. So it's a last gen build, but don't kick it to the curb just yet. These components are going pretty dang cheap, so it could be a great way to save some money. You've got to balance the cost savings versus spending more for upgradability. That choice is on you. I would, however, go for the RTX 4060 rather than the 3060 to get the latest features. So onto our build. We're going to go stepwise. Assembling the B550M motherboard is fairly straightforward. M2 SSD first, and because it's a Gen 3 drive, we'll pop it in the bottom slot, leaving the nice fast Gen 4 drive free for expandability in the future. Instead of a screw, it's this little plastic dealie. You just pop it off, put the M2 SSD in, pop the plastic back on, and you're done. Let's get the CPU in. Now, be careful of the gold pins on the bottom. So just like your mum, I like to grab it by the sides. Slot it in this way, gentle pressure, and lower the lever arm, making sure everything's sitting flush before you do that. Then we're going to fix down the included Wraith Stealth cooler. You're going to go diagonally by the screws bit by bit. The DDR4 RAM slots into the second and fourth slot with a firm click on either side. Then don't forget to hook up the CPU fan to the header. That's the motherboard done. Now that the case is out of the box, let's take a look. There are 4 thumb screws to take off the glass, which then simply pops off. Inside, you'll find the included screws and fittings inside a clear plastic bag. The back panel is held on with 2 screws on the back that you just slide it off. Here you can see the compatibility. There's a standard power supply mounting area in the bottom right. Then next to that is a hard drive caddy which can fit a 3.5 inch drive inside as well as a 2.5 inch drive on top. And above the power supply mounting area you've got sleds for 2.5 inch SSDs. We'll show you a bit more detail in a bit, but they're fairly standard. And there's a bunch of bog standard cable tie down points throughout the case which are nice and helpful. The front of the case has this pretty cool diamond pattern, I mean the clue's in the name I suppose, and the front panel will come off with a firm pull from the bottom. You can fit 3 120mm fans or 2 140mm fans, and of course you can fit up to a 360mm liquid cooler. 280mm cooler might fit, but I think it's going to be a bit tight. You can try it and let me know. We've got a couple of spare case fans lying around, so we're just going to pop those in the front for a bit of additional airflow. There's actually only 1 fan included as standard with this case, and it's an ARGB 120mm which sits at the back. Now to our power supply, it's fully wired, so there's no modular cables to put in. You simply slide it in, fan side down, and screw it in with the hex screws. As a top tip, feed the CPU power cable through the top right in advance like this. It's going to make it easier to put in the future. Now the mounting area for the power supply is pretty bog standard stuff. There's a cutout in the front of the case, so just be aware that the label might be on show on the other side. Above the power supply area we have 2 sleds for 2.5 inch SSDs. These are pretty easy to use. You just slide your SSD in and fix them in with the hatted screws. Then you simply slide the sled back in and fix down the fixing screw. Okay, so now is the time to mount the motherboard, and it looks like the camera ran out of goddamn battery at this point because there's no footage. So you'll just have to use your powers of imagination and place the motherboard into the case. Then you screw it down using the hatted screws. Because this motherboard only has a couple of fan headers, we're using this splitter to power the fan speed PWM. There is a male 3-pin ARGB connector from the front of the case which lets you control 3-pin ARGB devices using the case button, so we're going to hook up the rear fan RGB plug straight to that. And as per usual, we need to hook up the HD audio, USB 2, USB 3 and front panel connectors. This is the fan cable from the splitter that we saw a second ago, and on it goes. The 24-pin cable slots in nicely on the right side of the motherboard with a hearty click. The back PCIe slots are the cheap snap-off type, so loosen this screw on the back to slide it back, and then you snap off the slots that you need for the graphics card. These are going to be the ones that line up with the long slot, and then of course the one underneath that as well. Unbox the graphics card and take off all the plastic, even the plastic on the fans, which I've always thought was a bit silly being there in the first place. Slot the video card into the top long slot until it clicks in nicely, then you're going to fix it in place with the hex screws. Then tighten down that single screw on the back to keep it all in place. When plugging in the 8-pin PCIe power, you've got to ensure that the 6 pins and the 2 pins are squeezed together nicely so that it can slot in properly. Some basic cable management is now all you need, and you can use the included cable ties to do this. No need to overcomplicate it, just put it somewhere that makes sense. Now you can put the panels back on, easy peasy. And hey presto, a tidy looking budget build. The performance is coming up, but first, what did I think of this case? I've built in a lot of cases. I've done well over 500 PC builds at this point. And I'll tell you this, sweet cheeks, it's fine. I mean, it's not great, it's not horrible. Would I recommend it? Probably not. It costs about £45 to £55, which is pretty cheap, but there are other cases in this price range which range from a little bit better to a lot better. I'm thinking of things like the Antec AX20, or the MSI Mag Forge 100R. These both come to mind as probably being a bit better for the same money. They'll have better airflow, they'll include more RGB fans as standard. The GameMax Diamond, it's just meh. I mean, it's like not horrible, but it's not great either. The front airflow is pretty poor, there's not much room for air to come through. The internals are fine, the build quality is okay, but as I said before, there are other better options out there. We did a pretty sweet review of the MSI Mag Forge 100R quite a while ago now, I'll put a link below, and at the same price the MSI blows this out of the water in terms of value and build quality. So there it is, we're basically done here ladies, so I will leave you with the performance results on screen, and until next time, I'll catch you.